Welcome back to the A Game. I'm Hunter Boston.
I'm Judson Mabe.
And I'm Lucas Warren.
App State football got a bounce-back win this week against Southern Miss. How will App State look for the remainder of this season?
Yeah, so currently sitting at second to last in the East Division of the Sun Belt Conference. The only team below them in the standings is Marshall, who they played this week. It is a must-win game to add momentum, as they will take on the top three teams in the East Division for the rest of the schedule for App State, including the Georgia teams and 23-ranked James Madison. The biggest area for improvement, stop the run. Over the past 2 weeks, they haven't been able to do that at all, with Old Dominion having 221 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and Southern Miss exploding for 301 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. As for the offensive side, they have to play mistake-free football the rest of the way. Having 5 fumbles and 1 interception in the past 2 weeks just isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, you said it. The rushing defense has been awful. They're the worst in the Sun Belt right now. They allow 206 yards per game on the ground, and they're 125th out of 130 teams in the country in the rushing defense. It hasn't been good. The least amount of yards we've given up in a Sun Belt game this year was against Coastal Carolina, 196 yards on the ground. It's been dismal. You talked about the turnovers. Joey Aguilar was a playmaker against Southern Miss last weekend, going for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, or over 400 yards if you include his rushing yards. But the turnovers continue to plague him just a bit. The interception I'm fine with when you throw for 4 touchdowns. But, fumbling the ball, we saw 3 fumbles against ODU last week. All of them were recovered, but it's become a trend. He holds onto the ball a little too long, and then pocket collapses. He loses the ball. I'd like to see him clean that up, but offense has been keeping us in these games, so you can't complain much.
Definitely been a mixed bag. I agree. The offense definitely keeping us in the games. Just looking at the stats overall in the Sun Belt, we're second offensively in scoring offense, total yards, and total defense, but first in passing touchdowns. But with defense, 11th out of 14 teams in total defense and 14th in rushing defense. Can't do that against a gauntlet of teams like Marshall. It's 4-4, Georgia State 6-2, James Madison 8-0. And Georgia Southern 6-2, but I think the path to a bowl game is there. I think Marshall, Georgia State, and Georgia Southern are all winnable. I know it's a hot take, but I think the path is there. I think it's possible. Really quickly, do y'all think a bowl is still possible for App State?
I think you got to beat Marshall. You got that game at home. You have Marshall and Georgia Southern at home. Those look like the 2 easier games. I don't love our chances. Georgia State, JMU on the road. So take care of the games at home. I think we can sneak in there.
Yeah, I want to hope so, but it's not been looking good as of recent. The rushing defense just has to get better. You saw Frank Gore just explode for 60 yards. It seemed like every play.
Yeah, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's possible. It might be a low chance, but it's still possible. But moving on, the NBA tipped off this week with loads of excitement. What was your thoughts on the NBA's opening week?
Yeah, you got to look at the trade that started off the NBA season. That happened last night. James Harden going to the Clippers. Philly, willing to trade Harden because of the play of Tyrese Maxey. He was the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, averaging 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. What I don't love is they lost P.J. Tucker in the deal. That's a player that helps them win games now, and the best win-now asset you got back in the trade was probably K.J. Martin, who's an athletic 3 or 4, but really doesn't space the floor for you. The main thing they did that trade for is the 2028 unprotected first alongside a valuable pick swap. They'll probably look to trade that pick in the future, but yeah, that James Harden trade finally happened, and then the hot start from the Mavs really surprised me. Luka Doncic, 117 points through 3 games. Only players to do that: Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, Jerry West. Could this be the season Luka gets that MVP?
Yeah, and a surprising start for the Boston Celtics as well. Coming into the season, they were looked at as one of the best teams, if not the best team in the association. But I don't think everybody was ready for the addition of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. So far, both new Celtics been great on both sides of the ball. Drew Holiday, in over 3 games, has 6 blocks with 1 steal. That is insane coming from your point guard. With Porzingis doing it on both sides of the ball, averaging 23 points over his first 3 games, providing a solid third option behind Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And speaking of Tatum, it's no surprise he's one of the best scorers in the league, and he's showing it through these first 3 games, averaging 28, 9, and 5. Another thing is the OKC Thunder are the most exciting young team in the league. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's picking right up where he left off from the FIBA World Cup, averaging 24, 7, and 7. as well as a block and 2.3 steals per game. And Chet Holmgren. We didn't get to see him last year, but we're seeing him now, and he is soon going to be, if not right now, one of the most elite rim protectors in the league.
Love that, Judson. 2 teams still undefeated. That's the Boston Celtics, Denver Nuggets. 1 player has already had 2 40-point games. That's Steph Curry. Looking at the James Harden trade, we'll see how it works with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook. How is all of those guys going to be able to work on the same team? It's not happened in the past, but we'll see if anything happens. But I can't talk about NBA without talking a little bit about the Hornets. The start of the season off with a win. They got a win before the Carolina Panthers, so shout out to them for that. But you got to look at Brandon Miller. There was a lot of heat with that pick, but he's done good so far. 17 points per game, 31 minutes, 22 points against the Nets just last night. I know it's early. This Hornets team probably isn't going to be any good, but it's good to at least have a promising start.
It's 1 win of 20, so
Yeah. I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
Space it out.
Yeah. But we'll see how it goes. But staying on the topic of basketball, App State is set to tip off this week. What do you expect from the Mountaineers this season?
I expect a much better season than last year. Last year they were completely .500 winning percentage for both overall play and Sun Belt Conference play. You look at the team, they entered the season second ranked in the preseason Sun Belt coaches poll, which is the highest ranking since joining the Sun Belt in 2010. Individually, forward Donovan Gregory earned preseason first all Sun Belt team, while big man C.J. Huntley earned third team honors. You look at their starting rotation, and most of the rotation has come back, including Justin Abson, who was a freshman last year. Played phenomenal, had a phenomenal freshman year, came in second in program history for blocks in a single season with 70, and also served as the main rebounder for the Mountaineers with 188 rebounds. In order for App State to be a true contender in the Sun Belt, I think they will need more production from role players such as Chris Mantis, Xavier Brown, and Terrence Harcum. Speaking of Xavier Brown, he's one of the most athletic humans I think I've ever seen in person, and I can't wait for him and the Mountaineers to jump back into action.
Can he make a free throw, though? That's the question.
That's
Brown.
true.
But yeah, no, you said it. This team, they're returning 6 of their 8 highest minute players per basis when you look last year, and that's where you see the second ranking in the preseason poll. You're hoping that this team sees internal improvement. You have the leader in Donovan Gregory. You have guys like Justin Abson, Terrence Harcum that could make a leap that are younger guys. And you bring in a good transfer. You have Miles Tate come in. He's transferred from Butler. He didn't get a ton of opportunity his first season with Butler. He got 25 minutes a game, averaged about 7 points, 3 assists a game. That went down his next 2 years at Butler. But just getting that experience at a higher level, he'll definitely come down and I think make an impact. But yeah, like you said, I'm looking at a guy like Chris Mantis. He's a guy that could change the court just because of his spacing, but there was too many games where he was just an 0 for 8, 0 for 10. We need to see him be a more consistent shooter. I think that could go a long way for App State this year.
We've already covered it, but 16-16 last season, right in the middle of the pack. 4 straight 500 or better seasons under coach Dustin Kearns. Should be a good one this year as well. I mean, number 2 Sun Belt pick, about 159 votes, only 17 behind James Madison, which got first. Not a lot of turnover with this team. 72% of the scoring is back, led by Donovan Gregory and Terrence Harcum. My big player to watch this season is Justin Abson. We've already talked about him a little bit, but his freshman year, 6.2 points, 5.9 rebounds, led the team in 22 minutes. This team needs a legit big man to really guard that block, and I think he should be that guy. But big season coming up, big game against Auburn at home on ESPN2 December 3rd, and aspirations for a Sun Belt title and a March Madness bid should be good, but stay where you are. Coming up next, we'll hear about fact or fiction.
Welcome back to the EA Game. I'm Paul McKenna, joined by Cody Bear and Lucas Warren. Christian McCaffrey is currently at 17 straight games with a touchdown. Will this streak continue all season?
If he plays every game, yes. If he's able to avoid that injury bug, I think he's got a very good shot too, just because he's just such a big part of this offense. He's getting about 18 carries per game. He's averaging 4 catches a game. being that big of a threat on the ground and through the air poses tons of opportunities to get into the end zone. It's a wild thing to think about, but if he can stay healthy and on the field, I think he's got a very good shot at it.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we talked about the possibility of an injury. As long as he stays healthy, I think he will hit this record. If he gets kept out of a game, I don't think that should affect the record. I think it should keep going. If he gets a snap, gets injured, doesn't get the touchdown, then yeah, the record should be broken. But he's just too featured in this offense. The 49ers feature him in the red zone as both a runner and a passer, and that just he's moving all over the place. It's hard to scheme him out of a game if you're a defense because he lines up at wide receiver, slot receiver, running back. So I think he'll get a touchdown any game he plays in.
You know, he is the man. He is. But at the end of the day, how many seasons has he got injured in? You know, who said this couldn't happen again? I definitely think it will. But if it doesn't, it's a good chance that he could get a touchdown every game.
Yeah, one of the best when he's playing. All right, one of the greatest debates in sports is who the GOAT of basketball is. LeBron has already started this season strong. Do you consider him the best right now, or will you consider him the best when he retires?
Lucas, I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, not a chance. You know, obviously LeBron's great. I don't want to disrespect him. He's had a great legacy. He's undeniable impact on the game. When you look at, and I admit, if you're going to build the perfect basketball player in a lab, it'd be a lot closer to LeBron than it would MJ. But if you're going to talk about who has the greatest career of all time, I just don't think LeBron's peak ever matched MJ's. And if you're going to look at some other things, MJ, over 30 points a game in the playoffs. He's the only one of them. He has more defensive teams than LeBron. I don't think LeBron has ever made a defensive team. There's a couple other stats, but I'll let Cody get a rebuttal in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll look at the stats with you to start us off here. LeBron leads Jordan all-time in rebounds, assists, blocks, and I'm talking averages here. I'm not talking about totals. Longevity does matter in this debate, but I'm not using longevity here. These are averages. He ranks 9th in steals. LeBron is the only 30,000, 10,000, 10,000 player ever. And true shooting percentage, LeBron's 2% better. He's better field goal percentage by 3%, three-point percentage by 3%, and LeBron is top 5 all-time in scoring. I just think LeBron matches up pretty well when you bring the stats into the debate.
See, but when you also look at stats, if you compare specific times in their career, MJ kind of comes out on top besides in the 38th year, like age-wise, of their career. You know, and even when you look at the earlier seasons, it's comparable, but MJ still has that slight advantage over LeBron. LeBron is so big. He is so athletic. You would think the advantage would be bigger for LeBron, but it's just not. So I think that kind of devalues LeBron in a sense.
I'm going to say, you bring up the stats. I'm going to bring up the stats when they matter, and that's the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You got playoff stats. LeBron has only scored, MJ's only scored under 20 points 6 times in his career. LeBron has done that 30 times. There's only 9 players who have scored over 40 points in a series. Jordan's done that 5 times. LeBron's done that 0 times.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan leads the NBA all-time in 50, 40, and 30-point playoff games. If you look at who's the best playoff performer in the NBA history, which is what matters most, there's no question it's Michael Jordan.
See, but LeBron also has a better shooting percentage than Jordan when it comes to playoffs. So in that sense, it kind of goes towards LeBron.
But
Your second stat was a lot better than your first one because it showed what MJ's done that LeBron hasn't. Because you have to take into account the amount of playoff games that they've played in. LeBron's been in a lot more, so when you're talking about him not hitting those accomplishments, that has to be taken into account. But I do agree. I mean, I can't really refute what MJ's done that LeBron hasn't done in the playoffs. I do want to talk a little bit, though, about how much LeBron has dominated or led a team compared to MJ. The Cavs, they went from 61 wins when his last year there, the first stint, to 19 when he left. When he came back, they went from 33 wins to a 53-win team. When he left the Heat, they went from a 54-win finals team to a 37-win team that missed the playoffs. And then when he left the Cavs the second time, they went from a 50-win team to a 19-win team. I think there's some teammate, and of course, LeBron's had a lot of great teammates throughout his career. I don't want to say that's not true because we all know that it is, but I want to take into account just a little bit of how LeBron's dominated and carried teams and has somehow made the finals 8 years in a row with some of the teams that he's been on.
You can bring up the regular season stuff, and that's great, but I want to look at the peaks, and that's finals appearances. And a common rebuttal against Jordan is his finals teams just were easier than LeBron's teams. And if you look at the stats, it's just not true. Any finals team is tough, and if you take the net rating of every team that both LeBron and MJ has played in the finals, LeBron's comes out as plus 7.67. Jordan comes out at plus 7.71. Basically, the exact same number. If anything, LeBron's is a little better.
Yeah, and I agree. I brought a same stat that was their opponents in the finals, what their win percentage was. It's around the same. I do want to mention, though, LeBron with the whole thing about being 4 wins in the finals. The teams that he was on and the teams that he played against, it's just incredible that he was in that situation. I know we don't have the time to, but he didn't have great teams that he led on his back to the finals 8 years in a row.
If I'm going to close this segment, the last thing I'd say is at 6'6", Jordan was a far better defender. He's the first player to have over 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season. He was also first NBA all-defense 9 times compared to LeBron's 5.
Yeah, he didn't have to guard. He never really guarded the best defender during his prime years because of guys like Rodman and Pippen, but that is true.
Neither did LeBron.
Yep, LeBron.
For the playoffs.
Can't really say he plays a lot of defense. But Georgia football steamrolled Florida this week to stay undefeated. Is Georgia the new Bama in college football, and will they be a long-lasting dynasty?
Yes, I think they gotta be. They've gone back to back now. They've dominated the last couple of years. It hasn't seemed like a ton of threat to them. Georgia has a chance to win their 3rd straight national championship. Georgia's currently the A side before they're knocked off. And I think right now it sets up with a fun chance that Alabama's the team that could knock them off. But right now, until that happens, Georgia's in that position as the best team and the powerhouse in college football.
Yeah, it's nice to agree, Cody. I'm also going fact here. If you're going to say by Alabama you mean the next juggernaut in college football, then 100% yes, this is a fact. Georgia's hit that rare territory where your success leads into recruiting for the next year. They just have the best player at basically every position waiting to fill in their players when they graduate. So I think you're looking at a team that's just entering their dynasty. They have 2 championships now. I wouldn't just be surprised if it rivals what Nick Saban has done with Alabama.
See, but what if Bama comes back? Because Nick Saban isn't done just yet, you know? They could still come up. It's not like they're not recruiting. They are still a top team. Maybe they just kind of have
You know what's even scarier? Georgia's done this without having one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Imagine when they get that. It might be over for all college football when that happens.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that because you go back and you look at these quarterbacks that Alabama's had, and that's not even Nick Saban's real style. Nick Saban's style a lot of times is run the ball, don't worry about the quarterback. And now you have Heisman guys coming in, Heisman candidates year after year, and you're still not being able to get over Georgia. It's hard to defer that Georgia is the juggernaut right now.
Mm-hmm. So would you say Bama is the only one who could kind of take that stroll for a legacy from Georgia?
I think in the SEC right now, yes. And that's the best chance that we have someone to kind of match ways with them. There's Michigan, there's Ohio State, but right now, if it's a team that completely stops Georgia, stops them in their tracks, takes the SEC from them, which is the juggernaut conference of college football, it's got to be Alabama.
Lucas?
Yeah, I don't think there's any team that could take it. And I think if you're looking at it right now, the conference is actually going to help Georgia and hurt Alabama. The way the conferences are moving, Georgia's positioned very nicely, the easy side of that SEC. You have teams like Texas and Oklahoma coming in. I don't think they're going to make a huge difference, but I think it'll get harder for Alabama. I think Georgia will continue to grow and get better and just keep dominating.
Georgia is definitely the team. But that is all the time we have. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, Cody and Noah will run down the mountain.
Life is a journey. We're told that there are mountains and valleys before us. A mountaineer trudges through. Where others see an obstacle, a mountaineer sees an opportunity. A mountaineer climbs tomorrow's mountains today. So what is a mountaineer? A mountaineer is you.
Welcome back to the A-Game. I'm Noah Cornelius, joined by the one and only Cody Bear. Cody, kick us off with this week's rundown.
Today marks the NFL trade deadline. The Commanders have begun a fire sale, trading Montez Sweat to the Bears and Chase Young to the 49ers. The Vikings also traded for Joshua Dobbs after the Kirk Cousins injury. Meanwhile, despite getting calls and seeing frustrations from the player, the Las Vegas Raiders are staying put and refusing to trade Devontae Adams. Noah, are there any trades that you liked or lack of moves that you didn't like?
Yeah, Cody, I really liked Chase Young to the 49ers. That fleece needs to be put in a museum and studied en masse, because how on earth do you get a second overall defensive draft pick legend for a third round draft pick? I mean, what are the Commanders doing? Get your heads on your shoulders, man. How are you going to let them in? I mean, hey, look, if you're Chase Young, you get to go to San Francisco, you get to catch the Warriors games, that sort of thing. Cody, what do you think?
I will say, legends a lot right now, but I agree. Chase Young, he's a great player. He's got 5 sacks on the season already. He's going to look great with Nick Bosa. The 49ers just got a lot better.
Looks like they're mining for gold, and they just might find it. Now, App State field hockey dominated St. Louis on Sunday, getting a 4-0 win on Senior Day. Fifth-year star Rachel Hollywood Flagg scored 2 goals, and thanks to their win on Friday with Ohio University, they clinched the regular season Mid-Atlantic Conference Championship for the first time in program history, co-wielding it with Miami, Ohio. Finishing with a 14-4 record, head coach Emily Dinsmore set a program record for most wins by a first-year head coach, and numerous players earned weekly and national honors. Cody, how about this for a lesser talked about program within App State athletics? Do you think they can avenge their runner-up finish last year and finally take down Miami, Ohio in the playoffs to sit atop the MAC?
Absolutely they can. We know that they prep well. We've seen that they're going to compete with anybody. I like this team to finish on top.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do as well. And I've been calling the games for them all season. I really hope they do.
This weekend, we saw some more crossover boxing between pure boxer Tyson Fury and former UFC champion Francis Ngannou. Tyson Fury was a huge favorite, and the fight wasn't expected to go past 5 rounds out of 10. But as it turned out, Tyson Fury was knocked down in round 3 and only won by split decision. Noah, should Tyson Fury be embarrassed by this fight?
Look, I'll tell it like I tell Paula. I'll be real with you. I did not watch, but just looking at the decisions and how the rounds went, oh yeah.
Don't worry, I got you. This is humiliating for Tyson Fury. You're a heavyweight champ. This should not be a competition. I know Ngannou's a fighter, but boxing and UFC, it's a whole lot different. And what makes it worse is he didn't win at all, if we're being real. Francis Ngannou won that fight. He got the knockdown. I think he won 6 rounds out of the 10-round fight. An absolute robbery, embarrassing for Fury, embarrassing for the judges, and not a great promotion for Tyson Fury's upcoming fight with Alexander Usyk.
You know what, Cody, talking about embarrassing, like a child screaming and crying because he couldn't get a candy bar, James Harden finally got his way via a trade to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers still haven't learned their lesson because they have yet again gone after another aging superstar to hopefully help them get over the ever-elusive first-round hump. From Rockets' John Wall to Vera Wang-esque Eric Gordon, because homeboy never ages, the Clippers continue to chase after a championship they will probably never get. Cody, I think I know your answer to this one, but does getting James Harden make the Clippers a championship favorite?
So no, it does not make them a championship favorite. It makes things kind of weird with what's the plan with Russell Westbrook. Is he coming off the bench? What are you going to do with those 4 main guys? They're not a favorite. James Harden right now in this point of his career doesn't push the needle that much. I understand the move. You gave up guys who aren't win now guys. You gave up picks because you're going all in. They're putting all the chips in on a championship this year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The Clippers are like a chicken running around headless. But let's switch it from one ball to another.
After an 0-6 start, the Carolina Panthers have put 1 in the win column in a matchup of the number 1 pick versus the number 2 and 3 pick. Bryce Young finished with 235 yards and a touchdown, and helping his team get a home win over C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud finished with 140 passing yards on Sunday. Noah, what do you make of our first look at the top 2 quarterbacks of the 2023 draft playing against each other?
I'm still not impressed. C.J. Stroud has shown more consistency over many games compared to Bryce Young showing flashes over a couple games. Look, I don't care if I get flamed for this. I still think Bryce Young is too small. And heck, Andy Dalton played better when he was in against the Seahawks and felt like we scored above 20 for the first time forever. Look, I think Bryce Young, if he gets things right, he can turn it around. And I hope I'm proven wrong, because I'd rather be proven wrong than be proven right. I want to see a guy succeed.
I think Bryce Young is going to be totally fine. He's smart enough to not get injured. There's going to be injuries, but his play style helps him. He's shown flashes. I think he's going to be just fine, and I think it was great for the confidence. Yes, C.J. Stroud's been better consistently, but I'm glad Bryce Young was able to get a win, and in a game that counts.
Back from football to basketball, in a decision that has shocked no one, the Phoenix Suns are resting Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. I'm also honestly surprised that Kevin Durant is playing, despite the load management restriction that Adam Silver has put into place. Cody, do you still think that teams are finding a way, aka the Clippers, to exploit this system, and do you think the NBA will catch on?
I think they'll find a way to exploit the system. I think the NBA will catch on. I don't think it really matters. You can't tell a guy to play with an injury if it's coming out that it's an injury and he's going to sit for a game. You can't force him to play. There's no way to get around it. It sucks because NBA fans buy tickets in advance to see the stars, but there's no way to stop it.
You want to talk about things you can't stop? How about James Madison?
Exactly, Noah. James Madison narrowly got past Old Dominion at home in their first game as a ranked team this season. The Dukes are now 8-0 and ranked 23rd in the country. Is this James Madison team for real? And how ridiculous is it, Noah, that they cannot compete in a bowl game? Unless there's not enough 6-win teams, then they become eligible.
Hold me back, Cody. It's unbelievable. Yet another example of a joke of an organization that is the NCAA. I truly can't remember a time in which the NCAA has done something right, and this just adds to it. What JMU is doing is nothing short of incredible. An FCS championship caliber team that has not only already made its mark in FBS, but is ranked in their second year. NCAA better give them a bowl game. Grant them an exception, you frauds.
It is the worst. The team obviously deserves to be in a bowl game. It's bad for the team, bad for the brand, bad for the sport, and bad for the fans. Let them play football. There's no valid reason for them not to play.
And as if things couldn't get any worse in Minnesota, Kirk Cousins went down with a torn Achilles in Green Bay. While the Vikings are second in the NFL North, they are also 4-4, riding the 500 line like they're at Daytona. But even before the injury, there were rumblings about blowing it all up. Cody, as unfortunate as it is about Kirk Cousins' injury, is this the beginning of the end for the Minnesota Vikings?
It is, as far as this era goes, I think. Josh Dobbs is not the long-term answer. I don't expect Kirk Cousins to be in Minnesota again next season. Then you got to start to look at your options. You're not a win-now team. You have to start thinking about what you're going to do with a guy like Justin Jefferson. Do you trade him for picks? Do you keep him even though you're not going to win? Is he going to want to come back to the Vikings? They have to get out ahead of that, and gets rebuild time for Minnesota.
I got nothing more to add on that, Cody. I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Moving on to the NHL, we have seen a strong start from teams such as the Bruins, Rangers, Avalanche, and Golden Knights. The Carolina Hurricanes currently sit at 5-4 thus far through the season. It's incredibly early, but through this start of the NFL season, what games and what teams are you looking at that are best in the NHL?
Cody, I think you said at least one. Look, I'm looking at the Capitals, I'm looking at the Lightning, and I'm looking at the Golden Knights. How about a team in Las Vegas? The Heat of Las Vegas not only winning a Stanley Cup, but they're actually dominant. We look at Arizona just across state lines, and it seems like people don't care about hockey there. Las Vegas, though, they've got some fire under their bellies.
I'm with you on the Golden Knights. They're 9-0-1. They have 19 points this far through the season. They have a pair of great goalies in Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill. I think Vegas looks the best so far. They're picking up right where they left off.
Speaking of picking up right where they left off, NASCAR. Come on, did y'all really expect me to end this with anything less? It's the last race of the year to determine the champion in NASCAR's top three divisions. The Craftsman Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. Carson Hocevar, Justin Allgaier, and Ryan Blaney will win in their respective divisions. Now, as I go off to Green Bay to start my career with NBC, NASCAR has made the decision not to return to Wisconsin for any races except for one in Milwaukee. Look, so after this weekend, this is goodbye for me from NASCAR in a while. And my coverage of NASCAR as a college student will also be over too. Now, Cody, what a 75th anniversary season it has been. Final comments from you. You went with me to a couple races this season, and it's been crazy. What do you think the future of NASCAR holds after season 75?
So it's clear that NASCAR is starting to listen to the fans, and they're starting to do some fun things here. Wilkesboro was fun. Chicago was fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think we see more of that. And if you say NASCAR is boring, I challenge you to do really two things. One, go to a race. And two, watch the interactions of these drivers outside the cars after the race. You want to talk about passion and heat? These guys are bringing it right now.
I've indoctrinated him.
That'll do it for us on this episode of The A-Game. Thank you for joining us.
And make sure to follow at AppTV Insta on Instagram and at The A-Game Sports on X, formerly Twitter. Now, with the Appalachian Weekly News' local election coverage next week, we'll be taking a break to give them the proper airtime they need. But look for us to come back on November 19th.
For the crew and my co-hosts, always bring your A-Game.